So sometimes we're asked, what do you mean when you're talking about a private fund? Well, we mean a fund that is not registered under the 40 Act, meaning it's not a registered mutual fund or publicly available fund, but that it's exempt from the 40 Act in one way or another. There's a whole series of exemptions. You can watch that video. But a private fund is just that. It's an exempt fund, that it's one of several types of funds. Hedge fund is a common term that we hear. And when we think hedge fund, we think risky, right? It's got to be risky. Well, a hedge fund isn't necessarily risky. When we think of hedge fund, we think of not necessarily just risky, we just think public securities. So stocks, bonds, options, futures, anything that's publicly traded. Private equity fund. We often think of private equity as super exclusive. Some people think it's really risky. It may or may not be. Each of these totally depends on the strategy of the fund. But private equity is just that. It invests in private companies. And it could be company stock, or it could be company debt, or some sort of hybrid structure like a convertible bond or preferred stock or something like that. Now also, venture capital, which is really kind of a subset of private equity that is really more startup companies, and here we're talking like seed rounds or a Series A or B round where they're raising money, they're not profitable typically, and they're trying to get market share. Venture capital funds take minority stakes in private companies, usually startups. A private fund could also be a real estate fund that is invested in, it could be residential, it could be commercial, it could be any type of real estate or real estate derivative, but it's privately offered, so meaning only to typically accredited investors. That's true of all of these funds. And then you might have a special purpose vehicle. We have a whole video on special purpose vehicles, but special purpose vehicles essentially means it's a fund that has one investment in it and really just a handful of investors that might be investing in that fund. So it's just a smaller, more limited option of an investment with only one holding. Another term is fund of one. That's a special purpose vehicle or an SPV. So there you have it. When we talk about private funds, we're talking about something that's only available under an exemption to the 40 Act, and it usually looks like one of these options.